We are a city that has long known that the freedom and dignity of one religious community depends on building a place where those values are enshrined for all religious communities. We should be proud of this history, but it is only prologue to the next steps. Because while in the past a vanguard of Chicago, the vanguard that is sitting in this room, has advanced interfaith cooperation, we now need to go a step further. This city now needs to be a vanguard of that ethic for the whole world. How does this happen? Well, consider this. A quarter century ago, you'd be hard-pressed to find a bike path in a major thoroughfare in this city. Few restaurants boasted local produce. Only a handful of companies had recycling programs. The idea of museums running on solar power would have been laughable. And now, cities across the country and the world are coming here to ask how they can be green like Chicago. Environmentalism went from a niche movement to a social norm in this town. So what would it look like for interfaith cooperation to do the same? There is no city better positioned to take on this challenge. We are home to some of the leading religious intellectuals in the world, and long have been, from Martin Marty and Cardinal Bernardine in Christianity, to Rabbi Marx in Judaism, to Fazlur Rahman and Dr. Omar Abdallah in Islam. Our Council of Religious Leaders of Metropolitan Chicago is a model for other cities. We have perhaps the highest concentration of interfaith organizations of any city in the country. The McCormick Foundation, the Chicago Community Trust, and other philanthropic bodies know that they have to invest in this work for it to grow here. Our political leaders, Mayor Daley and others, are supportive of these efforts, and houses of worship have long had exchanges and collective projects in this city. But what inspires me most are the efforts that our educational institutions are taking to raise up a new generation of interfaith leaders. If you want environmentalism, you need environmentalists. If you want interfaith cooperation, you need interfaith leaders. What do interfaith leaders do? It's very simple. First, they change conversations from the typical religion poisons everything or different religions are fated to fight to my religion requires me to work with people from your religion for the betterment of the world. Interfaith leaders launch projects. Interfaith leaders launch projects. Interfaith Habitat for Humanity builds, interfaith book groups, interfaith congregational exchanges. Interfaith leaders have a vision of neighborhoods, cities, a society where interfaith cooperation is the social norm. The seminaries in this city get it. President Alice Hunt, President Cynthia Campbell, and others are in this room. Just about every seminary in this city has courses, and many even have centers on interfaith cooperation. You know what that means? That means when a church hires a Chicago Theological or McCormick or Catholic Theological Union graduate, they know that one of the first things that that young religious professional is going to do is go to the local mosque and synagogue and say, how can we work together? And universities in this area, Elmhurst College, DePaul University, are making interfaith cooperation part of their identity, part of their mission, because they know that this work cannot be left just to religious professionals. It has to be a new generation of citizens who make interfaith cooperation part of their business, part of Chicago's business, part of America's business. I can't tell you just how important I think the leadership of young people is in this work. I think that voice best comes from a poet from the south side of Chicago, speaking as if she were a young person on the power of young people, Gwendolyn Brooks, who writes, I shall create, if not a note, a whole, if not an overture, a desecration. There is a reason that every time you see a story about somebody killing somebody else to the soundtrack of prayer, that person is 19 or 22 or 27. It's because religious extremists know the power of young people. They are investing, they are recruiting, they are mobilizing an army to create desecrations. Will we mobilize our armies to create symphonies of cooperation? I promise you, the return on this investment will be magnificent. You only have to look at a young interfaith leader who came to Chicago via New York and Los Angeles and Hawaii, who spent his formative years under the tutelage of a Jewish organizer, who learned how to bring together Black Baptists and Irish Catholics and African American Muslims on the south side of Chicago for jobs and education programs, who took the ethic of Chicago to the White House and spoke these words at his inaugural address. America's patchwork heritage is a strength, not a weakness. We are a nation of Christians and Muslims, of Jews and Hindus, and non-believers. We have seen the lines of tribe dissolve. We have watched the blood feuds end. We believe the future will be brighter than the past, and we want America to play its role for peace in the world once again. Jazakallahu khair. May God give you goodness.